Hi, I'm Brandy McDonald, arts and entertainment writer for the Oklahoman and Oklahoman.com. And the day is finally here. It's deadCenter 2019, starts today. And we have a group of filmmakers here from deadCenter. These are some of the folks that were involved in the making of the documentary Words from a Bear. We have Jeffrey Palmer, who is the director and producer of the film, and Gus Palmer, who is his dad and a consultant on the film, and Desiree Hill, who is the associate producer. Thanks for coming in today, guys.
Thank you.
We weathered the storm and got here, and it's time for deadCenter 2019. And this film, Words from a Bear, is a documentary about Scott Momaday, the Oklahoma native, the Kiowa author, the Pulitzer Prize winner. How special is it to get to bring that to Oklahoma?
I think it's absolutely amazing. The film has been on this long journey since it premiered at Sundance, and we're finally here in the state that Scott was born and where I was born. And I think that that's the sweetest thing that can happen, is bringing it to deadCenter, which is a film festival that I've admired and always wanted to do my Oklahoma premiere with this festival. And so we're just excited that we have the opportunity to have Scott here with us to celebrate this moment in Oklahoma and filmmaking in Oklahoma. So we're just really happy.
This is an excellently timed film because it's the 50th anniversary this year of his book, Housemaid of Dawn, winning the Pulitzer Prize, which was, of course, not only important in and of itself, but he was also the first Native American to win. So talk a little bit about how that perfect timing worked out and how this film came about.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily go on that timeline. It really was serendipity that this happened all in the time that the Pulitzer was won in '69, and of course we were filming in last year, and the film finished last year when the book was published. Housemaid of Dawn was published in 1968. So we've just kind of been following that timeline, and I think American Masters, who is the producer of the film on PBS, had that in the back of their minds. And it just was perfect timing that all of these things came together, and we could celebrate not only who Scott Momaday is, but also the fact that this novel really changed American literature. And that was one of the reasons. And it changed American literature at a time that was really turbulent in American history, and in the late '60s. And so it's just huge, I think, that all of this is coming together and really is, as I said, serendipitous.
Well, talk a little bit about, you guys have a connection through UCO, and so let's talk about how this project sort of got started.
Yeah. American Masters came to me first. I had a film called Isabel's Garden that screened at Sundance in 2015. And the executive producer of American Masters, Michael Cantor, was there with another PBS representative for Native filmmaking, Vision Maker Media. Her name was Shirley Sneevy. And they were having a conversation about who the next Native person would be profiled on American Masters, which incidentally, there hasn't been very many. And so Michael Cantor said, "Who's it going to be?" And Shirley said, "It has to be Scott Momaday." At the same time, they had just seen my short film, and they said, "Well, who's going to direct it?" And Shirley said, "Well, we just watched Jeff's film, and he's Kiowa, Scott Momaday is Kiowa. Maybe we should reach out to him." And they did. I mean, it literally was that. It was being in the right place at the right time, I guess. And so Michael Cantor gave me a call. I chatted with him on the phone, and then it just kind of, snowballed from there. I was working with Desiree at UCO at the time, and we started the documentary program there at UCO. And Desiree and I literally work across the hall from each other. And she was a producer in news and journalism, and I needed a producer. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I said, "Would you like to help me on this film?" And she said, "Yeah, absolutely." And then that's how it started. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your involvement and UCO's involvement, Desiree.
Well, another thing about Jeff and I working together was we'd actually kind of worked on some other stuff together. We'd worked on a documentary that it's still in the can, I guess you could say, because,
Yeah.
but we spent a lot of time together brainstorming and on a whole other topic, and I think it showed us that we could work together. You have to be able to work together. It doesn't matter how great somebody is or what their resume is. If you don't get along together, if you don't complement each other, and I think through some of those smaller projects, he felt comfortable enough to invite me into the project. And so absolutely, when he said, would you like to help with this? I said, yes, whatever you need. And then UCO, I would say, because we are in Oklahoma and UCO is a part of our audience here, they were really good as far as allowing me, because Jeff left during that time and went on to Syracuse University, but allowing me days here and there to travel and go do things. And so they have been supportive, extremely supportive and proud of this project.
And you had a really pretty good resource right in the family. Your father, Gus, is a Kiowa scholar and linguist, and I believe you also had a connection with Mr. Momaday as well.
We go back to the start of the Indian Renaissance, which was in 1968 or 69 when he won the Pulitzer Prize. I was a student, and in English, I was an English major back then, and so we didn't have any role models. We were looking at William Faulkner and Hemingway and all these other writers, trying to emulate, trying to be writers ourselves. And then all of a sudden, Scott was there, and I said, wow, he's Kiowa. And I know his family, and we grew up in the same general area. Well, of course, he left and went to New Mexico when he was young, but I grew up in that area. So I knew his family, I knew and became a friend of Scott's. It's been a long time. We've been together for a long time, but this whole idea of oral tradition and literature and poetry, we struck up a conversation early on, and some of our work's been published in some of the same anthologies. So we go back quite a ways, and I was glad my son was the filmmaker in it, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a really Kiowa undertaking, in which it turned out to be, and the Kiowa people see that in the film, and it's significant in lots of different ways, of course.
How meaningful was that for you, Jeffrey, to be Kiowa and to be profiling Kiowa Legend?
Yeah, I mean, it was like it really couldn't have been scripted better, I mean, it was perfect. I mean, it was you have this dream film that you want to make, and there it was in front of me as a documentary filmmaker. It really landed in my lap, and it has been the most meaningful thing in my life, as a work of art, but also just personally, because reconnecting with the people, reconnecting with Scott, because I had met him when I was really young through my father, and little did I know, when I was 7 years old, when I met him for the first time, that I would be making a film about him. It kind of came together, and sometimes there are things in your life that are kind of fate, and this felt like that, in the process of making it, and now that we've released it, it feels like that. So it's going to change my life,
Well, I think you kind of made an interesting choice. You kind of almost like swapped a filmmaking tradition for a Kiowa tradition, whereas you deferred some of the interviews to your father,
Yeah.
and kind of had some elder to elder interviews with Mr. Momaday. So can you talk about how that dynamic affected the film?
Yeah, when we went into this, we wanted culturally to do this the right way, because we know that it being with a Kiowa elder, that there were certain cultural norms and cultural things that we wanted to approach. And then Dad, he's a professor emeritus from OU in linguistics in Kiowa, and I think Scott and him had a connection on many different levels, not only just writing, but also the Kiowa language. And so Dad was the perfect person to have that relationship with him on camera, because I felt like being so different in age from him that it would have been disrespectful to call out and bark out questions to him and sort of manipulate the interviews that way. I wanted my father to really just create a dialogue between the two of them. And it turned out to be great, because it opened Scott up in a different way than it would have had I just had a normal interview situation where I was just questioning him and interrogating him, and which I don't typically do, as a director, but it can be that way in that situation. So I think it really loosened up the dialogue and created more stories and took us down different directions in the narrative that we wouldn't have been able to go without him being there. So.
You also got some really interesting interviews. I think you had Robert Redford that you got to interview, the Bo and Jeff Bridges. So how was it to talk to some of these movie stars and luminaries about, again, another a Kiowa literary giant?
It was crazy. I mean, it was, I think Desiree and I literally were brainstorming these luminaries. I mean, a lot of these people, have won Oscars, and we didn't think that was possible. We were like, will these people really be in our film? Because Scott knew them and said, this is who I think you should ask. And we thought, how are we going to ask them? And Desiree literally was calling these people from her office and getting in touch with the right people. And all of them said yes. They loved Scott so much, they wanted nothing more than to be in the film. And there could have been more. I mean, we had a long list of people that could have been in the film. And we had to pull back on some of them because it was just becoming overwhelming. But it was very, very interesting to be in those situations. Desiree got to film Jeff and Bo, and I was doing Robert Redford literally the same day. Wow. So it was that crazy. And so,
It's something that you couldn't have imagined, right? I mean, I'm over here doing this while I'm doing this. So,
I've got Robert Redford. You got Jeff Bridges there?
Yeah.
Well, that was what kind of a cool thing about Jeff to me was that we had worked so hard to get, Robert Redford. It took, a year. And so Jeff scheduled this huge shoot in Santa Fe because Robert Redford was going to be in Santa Fe. And so, but he had other people lined up, some other people that are in the film. Really big, long weekend. And then the Jeff Bridges opportunity came up. We'd worked on that for a year. And that week, for some reason I want to say June 15 or something like that, I remember it so well, the Jeff Bridges people called and said, he can do it this Friday. Well, our whole crew was in Santa Fe.
Right. Everything.
This Friday. We'd worked on it for a year. We really
Because
we were about to finish production, so it was kind of like now or never.
It's now or never.
And so Jeff and I visited real quickly, and he said, let's see if we can do it in July. Let's see if we can push him to July. And they said, this is the day. This is it. So Jeff said, well, why don't you go do the interview. We're going to continue. We'll do the Santa Fe thing. And I love, that was what was so much fun, was that he trusted me because there was so much that could have gone wrong with it. But it worked out. It worked out in the end.
Yeah.
We have your beautiful bear necklace on. Let's talk about the title, Words from a Bear.
Yeah. Scott sees himself as a bear. He his Kiowa name is Soai Tali, which means rock tree boy. There's a story in Kiowa Legend that is about these 7 sisters, and they have a brother, and they're playing hide and go seek. And the brother transforms mysteriously into a bear and begins to chase his sisters. And as they're running around this forest, there's a tree stump that speaks to the sisters, and it says, "Jump on top of me and I'll protect you." And so they do. They all jump on the stump at the same time, and the stump grows into the air. And the bear runs to the tree and begins to claw on the sides of the trees. And as he's doing that, the sisters turn into stars, and they become the stars of the Big Dipper. Mm-hmm. And the tree trunk is actually Devil's Tower, as we know it, in Wyoming. And so this story correlates with the land. And the Kiowas had this story. This is an ancient story from, thousands of years ago, I would imagine. And the bear, who is the boy, nobody knows what happened to the bear. We talk about the sisters and the stars, but we don't talk about the bear. Scott believes he's the reincarnation of that bear because of his name, Soai Tali, rock tree boy. Mm-hmm. And so he always says, I turn into a bear on occasion, which I've seen that.
He actually growls.
Yeah, and so and words are the most important thing to him. You know, Scott believes that the word is how you identify yourself, how you identify history, who you are. It represents who you are. Words make up who we are. And so it just became Words from a Bear because he is the bear. So there's the title.
And I believe he is in town for deadCenter as well. As you mentioned, he's located out in Mexico now, but he is in town for the festival. And of course you are as well. Congratulations, I think are in order. I think you're going to be at Cornell next semester heading up the film program.
I am, yeah.
So congratulations on that. And I also think that this film has won some awards, including I think it won one yesterday. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Bozeman Film Festival in Montana won the Ted Turner Award, which is an award that deals with environmental issues, because there are some environmental issues that we talk about in the film, and Robert Redford speaks about them in the film, and so we place those issues in there, and yeah, it had a big win yesterday, so it's doing great things, you know, and playing all over the world, so we're just ecstatic.
All right. Well, it'll be at deadCenter Saturday, 5:30 p.m., Oklahoma City Museum of Art, and then Sunday, 1:30 p.m., the Devon Energy Theater at Harkins Bricktown Cinema. And congratulations on the success. Again, I think it'll be on PBS in the fall, like November, I think?
November will be the time it comes out, yeah.
Well, congratulations. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming out. And you guys can look for more on the deadCenter Film Festival at Oklahoman.com.